Nigerians are leaving the shores of the country in droves. So we're finding out why and what the APC intends to do about it as it raises issues around this ahead the 2023 election. Ayobami Oyalowo, Member Public Affairs Committee of the APC Presidential Council, joins me live from Abuja. We're going to talk in a short while about the Asiwaju manifesto and how it intends to address these issues. But you have raised some very interesting points about how Nigeria is not unique, how immigration, the large scale of immigration is not unique to Nigeria, and how some privileged few are also leaving the shores of the country. Well, I'd like us to speak to some more peculiar local issues. I mentioned that earlier while we lost connection with you, the issue of erratic power supply, how it's affecting small-scale industries and eating deep into the industrial ability of young Nigerians. There's the issue of health. There are many politicians today, when they fall sick, they don't trust the health system in Nigeria. They leave the shores of this country. Talk about education. ASU was on strike for forever last year. And there are many people who are looking elsewhere for a more reliable and sustainable educational system. But my question to you is, do you agree that there's a disconnect between a privileged few in government, those affiliated with them, and the mass of the people, the over 130 million people living in multidimensional poverty in Nigeria? And perhaps that's what's making it difficult for government to see the real reasons behind this exodus.
Okay, thank you. I want you to also understand that we as a people have a responsibility to our own selves. Let me try and break this down. By the time the British people left us in 1960, we were a population of about 40 million. Britain was a population of about 50 million. It's just 60 years and a little now. Britain is a population of about 65 million, including immigrants. We are a population of 200 and something million. So clearly there must be disconnect. Clearly there must be challenges of infrastructure and governance and so many other things. So it's easy to blame everybody, like I said earlier, but we have to look at ourselves. Our rate of production is of producing human beings, no matter how much our growth rate is in terms of GDP. If we continue to produce too many people per capita, compared to what we are producing as a country, it doesn't matter which government we have in place. If a country that colonized us has added 15 million people in 63 years now, and we have added 50 million people in the same period of time, it's not sustainable. So we can sit down till tomorrow and abuse the government, but why don't we ask ourselves, where do we produce this kind of human beings from? What exactly is our end goal? When we have more population than our infrastructure can carry. I am not absolving government of its responsibility. Please don't misunderstand me. I am saying when we hold the government to account, we must hold ourselves to account also. It's just the day I looked at this population comparison between Nigeria and Britain, I know that our problem is deeper than we are looking at it. Now let's talk about government and what government needs to do. I agree, clearly we must have a proper health care system, we must have proper education and all sorts. But many people who travel abroad to go and do a master's degree, don't forget they went with a certificate from Nigeria where they did their first degree. So if it was that bad, I don't think they will get admission with their first degree. That's number one. Number two, I read also yesterday somewhere a lady talking about the fact that she's in the US and her colleagues, her friends were saying they were owing education grants or education loan of up to $70,000, $100,000 and they may not be able to finish paying in 30 years. And they asked her, how much are you owing? And she said she's owing nothing. And then she now threw it in that, I actually studied nursing and it was free. And the whole place erupted. So we must look at the good first before we look at the bad. I have a friend who just left for Canada towards the end of last year. And I asked her honestly, I said, why did you leave? She said, because everybody is leaving. She has no reason to leave. She just got a job from one bank to another, got elevated, well paid, drive a nice car, live in a decent environment, and we'll say here in Abuja, and she just decided to leave because, say, why did you say? Because somebody tried it and I decided to try it and it worked for me. So at times, it is not all gloom and doom. Some people leave because of peer pressure. Some leave because they just felt, okay, they want to take pictures in the snow and then send back home. Everybody have reasons for leaving. But yes, government must take care of us. Government must do its own part. But as a people, we must do our own part. Let me put it to you like this. You are an educated young man. You have a decent job. You get a decent pay. I am sure if you are married now, maybe you have 2, 3 children at the maximum. But go outside, look at the extremely poor one among us. Because it's easy to say we have 130 million people. But why are we that? Why do we have that number? Because your security guard, your driver, the one who is poorer than you, has probably 2, 3 wives, probably has 7, 12 children, and then you are blaming government. Seriously, if you cannot blame ourselves for some of the things we actually brought upon ourselves, let's not continue to think government will come and take care of my children. If I have a job and my job can support myself and 2 children, why on earth do I want to marry 3, 4 extra wives and then have 4, 5 children from each of them and then sit there every day and then complain that Nigeria is bad? So people need to also plan their lives. Government will not help you plan your life. You must plan your life. So like I said, if somebody can raise 10 million naira to go and take picture in the snow and then try to work in a supermarket when he was a bank manager here, then it is a choice. You can't stop them. However, you can make Nigeria competitive to the point that people cannot take what they think they want to take. If our education system was as horrible as people are making it look like, you will not carry a Nigerian certificate to go and do a master's in either the UK or the US. So yes, there are challenges. I won't take that away from Nigeria. We have economic challenges. However, the entire world has an economic challenge too. Now,
it is really
the UK that
amazing
we are talking
how
about, have you followed the news recently? The people of that country themselves, the doctors and teachers from that country, are actually migrating to Singapore themselves as we speak. So now
it's amazing how you seem to.
So you see why you are complaining about our own, their own people are complaining about their own.
Permit me to jump in very quickly. It's amazing how you make light of people's decisions. Someone who can raise 10 million and say they travel out to take picture in the snow. I don't think it is fair. I mean, someone who has brain enough to make as much money would definitely know what they're doing, what they have seen, why they have left the shores of the country. It's also interesting. Just a minute. It's also interesting the point you have raised about population explosion in Nigeria, how our population has grown by 370% in 62 years, in variance with 30% in the UK. That also is largely based on the shoulders of government. But then, there is what they call demographic dividend. That's what China is doing with its population, growing one of the biggest economies in the world. It lies at the shoulder, at the doorstep of government. If we educate our people right and get them employed, we will be having more dividend from the population growth that you have talked about. But I'd like us to speak to the issues again, because if I'm right, you were once spokesperson for Nigerian diaspora for Ashiwaju. It meant that perhaps at a point you have jackpot yourself or you have a good relationship with those who have jackpot. So there are Nigerians now who are outside the country that I believe that you have a relationship because you spoke for them at a point in time, who left the shores of this country mainly because of the challenges that we've talked about. How do you think they are reacting to the APC's campaign for continuity in government?
I must let you understand that, like I said, traveling is a choice and everybody have reasons for traveling. For instance, somebody who is a medical doctor thinks they will be able to better their lives if they travel there, and it is allowed. What I will expect to hear is that, look, we will comparatively compare to our peers abroad. Hear me out. If a doctor leaves Nigeria to go to the United Kingdom, probably he thinks he will get better paid or better condition of service. So what I would think will happen here also is that we should raise our standard to that point. And this is where we can look at it sector by sector. For the medical sector, I think we have not done enough in terms of primary health care. That is why you go to the teaching hospitals today and you see a huge number of people waiting to see a doctor. Many of them, if not 70-80% of them, do not have any business being in teaching hospital in the first place. If we have proper primary education, health center working, I will explain. You have a malaria, you have a typhoid, you have and which is the most common thing here, malaria, typhoid, fever and stuff. You really don't need to go to the big hospitals for that. These are things that could have easily been handled by the primary healthcare center. But because, excuse me, our local government have become almost moribund and completely useless in terms of their own contribution to our development, we have decided that everything must be blamed on the federal government. So for primary education and then primary health center, primary health care also, I'm trying to put both together now. The local government, the state government must work to elevate this in our society so that doctors can have the kind of the same type of welfare system that they will meet in the UK, for instance. A doctor should not work beyond a certain number of hours. They should be able to, and the same thing with a nurse. They should be able to work within the same ambit of system there. If you make that available, yes, those that will wait, but don't also forget, we have this peer pressure thing. Because my friends have gone, I also want to go. So those that want to go on that road will also go. However, make the home front as competitive and as appealing as the other place. Now, this is where you now come to feeling of nationalism and patriotism. Indians, I don't think the economy of India is better than Nigeria in terms of the people, the number of poor. Because I know you've been talking about the 130 million multidimensional poor, but what many of you still don't put is context. What the people who pick that figure pick, they use their own system. But go to my village. The father in the village has a farm. He can feed his family. He does not have money. So you call him multidimensional poor. But it's actually not poor. His farm is feeding him. He has everything he needs within that village. So he does not have a car. He probably does not have a bank account. So you call him poor. However, the man in the UK that you say is not poor, he's living on credit. His home is on credit. His food is on credit. Everything is on credit. But he's not seen as multidimensional poor. So there are contexts to this issue. But what I'm saying is that we can also build our system so that primary health care center, for instance, will be available for this kind of people. And then for their headache, their small injuries, their fever, they don't have to be rushed to the teaching hospitals. They can easily access health care in the primary health care center. So these are things that I think we must look into. And I will not put this on the federal government. I put this completely on the shoulders of the state and the local government, because federal government does not have any business running primary health care center. So we have to talk to ourselves and talk to the entire issue, as it were. The job of the federal government is to build the huge cancer center, build the good center for disease and whatever control. The job of the state and local government is to ensure that there are people that have headache, cold, malaria are treated in healthcare centers that are close to them within their vicinity. So we need to look at these areas. And then in terms of education, we have to also ensure that our primary education is competitive enough that people in the middle class can be comfortable to put their children in public schools. I went to a public school, but today I can't put my children in a public school because the standard has become almost non-available. So these are challenges. I am not, like I told you, I'm not downplaying the issues. I'm only saying no matter what you do, those that want to go will go, but make the home front as attractive as possible so that those who have gone will not have an advantage over those who have not gone. So it's like that for me. And then people that have good jobs and decide to resign from their job and sell their houses and travel, it is a choice. You can't stop those kind of things because probably they think they will have a better opportunity there. It's a right. But for those who don't want to go and who want to build Nigeria, you must give them the same quality of life to what
Absolutely,
those who
there
are
are-
living will enjoy
absolutely,
wherever they are
Mr.
going.
Oyalowo,
So
there are
that,
more
that
people
for me
in
are the
Nigeria
issues that we must speak
who-
to as a country.
who
and
would
as a
also
people.
like to go but who do not have the means. So Lassuth recently talked about 150 nurses resigning in the past 3 years, and I'm sure you are also acquainted with the news as to the implication of the brain drain
Please, can you
on
repeat
our
that and
economy.
loudly?
Just a minute,
I'm
Mr.
struggling to hear
Oyalowo.
you.
I'd like us to talk about what your party's presidential candidate is going to do differently, particularly in the health sector, which is hardly hit by immigration that we're talking about, and also education, because many Nigerians are leaving for better education. You know, we can choose to believe it or not, but the truth is our higher institutions were on break for 8 months last year. But we're going to take a short break, and when we return, I'll allow you answer to these questions. Stay with us.